Well, good morning, church family.
Good morning, Jimmy. Buenos dias, Jimmy.
I want to emphasize the word family this morning. When you think about family, there's a bunch of different ways that we use the word, a bunch of terms or ideas that might come to your mind. Like, for example, you might think of a different groups or family of animals. The canine family, the feline family. You might think of groupings of other things like tools. That belongs to the saw family or the screwdriver family or the hammer family. You can use family in that sense. Sometimes we use family for those that we're close to. Maybe it's our co-workers. We have a family at work. Maybe you hear brother in arms. Those are family, the soldiers that are together all the time. We use family, maybe sports teams, so social circles, or maybe those who have a similar history or cultural background. We can call them brothers and sisters, our family. Of course, we call family too, we have a spiritual family. We are a family of faith. We use the word spiritual family, brothers and sisters. And most commonly, family is used to talk about either legal status or a nuclear family or a family who's a biological or maybe just that household, common household, those who we live with, those who we're around. The idea of family, I guess, maybe if we were to look at one word that would encapsulate the word family, could talk about belonging. Those who we feel we belong to, those who we feel security around, those who help to shape our identity, and those who we feel that we have an obligation to, maybe to provide for, to protect, responsibility toward. But being a part of a family doesn't always mean a good feeling of love. Sometimes being a part of a family, when you have two strangers, two people who are once strangers, and they come together, they meet each other, and they get married, and they become a family. Maybe they've had completely different backgrounds, completely different way of being raised, and now they're together as a family, and there's going to be turbulence. I remember looking at, talking about marriages, an old teacher and a preacher, Walter Hart, once said, when two people get married, it's like two rivers coming together, and when they converge, sometimes there's a bit of rapids, and then as it smooths out, the river is stronger and wider, and doesn't mean, though, that there's not going to be rapids ahead. Doesn't mean that for the rest of your life you have this strong, smooth, flowing river that just, breaks through anything in its way. There might be more rapids. There might be some turns and some twists and some challenges. And the Bible is no stranger to challenges in family. You can go right back to the beginning, Adam and Eve. Do you know that when Eve took of the forbidden fruit, God said, don't do that, you'll die. She said she took some and ate it and gave some to her husband who was with her. What? What was he doing when she ate that? Was he like looking over? What are you doing over there? Oh, yeah, just see what happens. Well, I don't know how that went down, but, here's some, try it. Why didn't he stop her? Was the relationship already broken? Did they just have a fight and go ahead and eat that and see what happens? We don't know what happened, how that happened. It probably wasn't that, but I'm just saying, there was a breakdown, something went wrong, and at the very least, there was a breakdown in their family of faith, their relationship with their Father in heaven. And then with their own children. Here's God's children, Adam and Eve, made in his image, and there's a breakdown. And then they have their children, and what happens? Cain and Abel. Cain goes out, and not only is he jealous of his brother, he murders him. And then Cain's children, Lamech. He's the first one to marry more than one wife, and he's a murderer himself, and he threatens his wives. He's an abusive, threatening man. Breakdown in relationship. And then you can look at Noah and what happened with him, even with Abraham. Abraham and Sarah, it seems that things are great, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe, we're not having a child that God said we should. Maybe take my maidservant Hagar, and they have a child, Ishmael, and God said, no, it's going to be through Sarah. And Isaac comes along. And look at the family problems between Sarah and Hagar and Isaac and Ishmael and Abraham and all these problems that happens in that family. Well, then comes along Isaac. Well, Isaac seems to have a stable marriage and family. He marries Rebekah, the love of his life. He shows off rolling that boulder off of the well, and seems like there's this nice love story the way they met. They have two children, just two. Wow. twins. If you look at, now you might not be able to see the genealogy of Abraham, but there's a reason why this is important, because God had promised Abraham it would be through your children that this blessing, this promise would come to all people, would be blessed through you. And so the promise goes through and it follows through here with Abraham. And it comes down through Isaac. And Isaac and Rebekah have these two children, Esau and Jacob. Esau was oldest. Notice Jacob's name is in bold. It's bolded there. Jacob is the one who the promise goes through. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. The Israelites come from Jacob. But you know what's interesting is that the story of the marriage and the relationship between Isaac and Rebekah and Esau and Jacob, there's problems. Right away. You know, it's introduced here that Isaac prayed on behalf of his wife so they could have children. And God said, it says when Rebekah conceived, she could feel the children, twins, struggling inside. And what does this mean, God? And God said, two peoples, two nations will come from your womb. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Well, this probably didn't sit right, because there's all kinds of problems that come from this relationship. The next thing we read is the story of the stew. Now, some of you are like, oh yeah, we know the story of the stew. You know, we teach our children the story of the stew. If you don't know the story of the stew, so when your firstborn child, even if there's twins, the first one out of the womb was Esau. Esau would have the double portion, and he was going to receive the blessing. And it seemed like the father, didn't seem like it, the Bible tells us that Isaac loved Esau more. There was favoritism. Favoritism shown. He wanted to give Esau the blessing, but the older would serve the younger. See, Jacob, he was mama's boy. And so he was raised with his mom, and his mom knew that the older would serve the younger should have that blessing. And so there's all kinds of problems in this marriage. And right away, the stew story, where Esau comes home from hunting, and he's just famished. And Jacob's at home making some nice stew, and Esau, oh, brother, can I have some of your stew? Now, normal brothers would be like, oh, I love you, brother. Sure, are you going to share your meat with us later? Absolutely. But that's not how it went down. You want some stew? You sell me your birthright. I'll sell you a bowl of stew for your birthright. And whether Esau thought he was joking or didn't think he'd be, Esau was foolish enough to say, yeah, sure, deal. Let's do it. And Jacob held him to it. That's like saying, you know, we had our kids, you know, they've made some big exchanges in life and fought about it later. I traded you this for that. I remember telling the kids, all right, guys, enough fighting. We're doing the year of Jubilee. Everything goes back to the original people. We're practicing that from the Bible. And so, what? That's not fair. Well, that's what's happening this year. And we had a story about the year of Jubilee, and we went back. So, whatever happened here, Esau sold his birthright. And Esau probably wasn't going to give it to him. So, Jacob and his mother come up with this plan. Let's trick your father into giving you the blessing. There's all kinds of problems in this family. Right from the beginning, there's favoritism, disunity, deception, and then there's bitterness. Esau was so mad. It says when Esau came in, so this is what Genesis 27 says. I have it up here, but for time's sake, I'm just gonna read it. You can go home and read it. Genesis 27, 30 to 45. As soon as Isaac had blessed Jacob, okay, Jacob comes in, Esau was hairy, so he put some goat hair on his arms. His mom said, you know, change your voice a bit, tell dad you got a cold, whatever. Trick your dad. His dad was old, couldn't see, and so he's like, what's wrong? Who is this? What's wrong? Yeah, it's me, Esau. Okay, well, his mom even prepared some food, because Esau was good with the game, and so, Dad, I came in from hunting, here's some food. And Jacob gets the blessing. And as soon as Jacob leaves, here's what it says. As soon as Isaac finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had left the presence of his father, his brother Esau arrived in from hunting. He also made some delicious food and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, let me get up and eat some, he said to his father, let my father get up and eat some of his son's game so you can bless me. It was a time of blessing in their lives. But his father Isaac said to him, who are you? He answered, I'm Esau, your firstborn son. Isaac began to tremble uncontrollably. Who was it then, he said, who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it before you came in, and I blessed him. Indeed, he will be blessed. When Esau heard his father's words, he cried out with a loud and bitter cry, and he said, bless me too, father. But he replied, your brother came and deceitfully took your blessing. So he said, isn't he rightly named Jacob, for he has cheated me twice now. He took my birthright, and look, now he has taken my blessing, Esau says. Then he asked, haven't you saved a blessing for me? And after this exchange, Esau, it says, when the words of the older son Esau were, Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing of his father. And Esau determined in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are approaching. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. Cain and Abel all over again. These aren't just two brothers fighting. This isn't just sibling rivalry. This is murder coming into a family. Hatred to the degree where you want to kill someone. Now, if you think your family's messed up, the Bible gives us a lot of messed up families and a lot of problems. But yet, this was the family of God's blessing. This was the family that God said, it's through Isaac and through his son Jacob that I will bless all nations. This is a family. The reason this story's in here is for us to zoom in and see what God's doing for all people of all time. This is a story about a family of the promise. Well, this is embarrassing. If you knew that, your whole life is being filmed and God's going to show that film to everybody and just highlight the bad parts. This doesn't just happen over a period of 10 years. So if we look at their ages, by the way, I do have these, I read them to you before, so we're not going to go through the passages here. I just briefly went through them. Isaac was blessed. Isaac was blessed, even though this is the family of God's blessing. We're going to look at some of the problems in a minute. But he received the blessing from God. God actually even appeared to him. He named the place Bethel. He saw the angels ascending and descending. God said, I am with you. God provided and protected for him. He gave him children and his own marriage and material possessions and money and guidance and protection. He delivered him from famine. He gave him honor in his old age. Do you know that in his old age, Jacob got to meet the Pharaoh of Egypt? Not only did he meet Pharaoh, he got to bless Pharaoh. And he had a peaceful death. Being a child of the promise, being a blessed child as Jacob was, it was truly a blessing and an honor. Here's that passage near the end of his life. And I'll tell you why I'm going through this. Joseph, Jacob's son, Joseph, you can read about his story in Genesis as well. He brings his father, he's like second in command, he knows Pharaoh. He brings his father to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh gets to meet him. How many years have you lived? And Jacob said to Pharaoh, my pilgrimage has lasted 130 years. Now this is Jacob. So from this number, you can kind of see other things, how old Joseph was when he got to Egypt. And we're going to trace this back in a second. I'll tell you why this is important in a minute. But we see that Jacob got to bless Pharaoh. And he was blessed by Pharaoh with property and an abundance. Yet Jacob's life and being a child of the blessing, it didn't happen in a number of 10 years. When you look at the ages, and they go back to, and there's a way you can calculate all this, but it's not exact. This is just approximate guessing. But you're like, wow. So Jacob's stories about Jacob and Esau with the food, Jacob going to Bethel, Jacob marrying Rachel and Leah and having his children, the 12 tribes, and then going down to meet Joseph and living in Egypt. This happens over 100 years. What about the rest of his life? What was it like? It wasn't as though all of his life was a bowl of cherries. Everything was great and grand and peace and blessings every day. And I say that because sometimes you think, God, I gave you my life. Why am I going through these troubles? God, I'm coming out to your family. Why do I see challenges at church? Why challenges at home? Where are you? If you said that you're going to bless me and be with me, that you love me, I don't see you. I see a lot of troubles and struggles. Now, again, if you're wondering how we get to these ages, I just wanted to put this out there. There's some calculations you can make. And by the way, people are like, also as we come to the age, we're like, how did he live that long, right? Some of us, remember, go back to the beginning with Adam and Eve. I just want to touch on this. Adam and Eve were living, and they were to eat of the tree of life and live forever. What was that? How did their bodies live forever? By eating from the tree of life. That's weird. And then after the world's corrupted, that's when thorns and thistles come. The world starts to change. Adam and Eve didn't die right away. Boom, they ate the fruit, and they just died. It was gradual. Their bodies started to decay. They slowly went into decline. And you see the ages of people. I don't know if I put that slide up here. Yeah, you do. Look in the Bible, you see the ages of people slowly declining. Until, Moses is pretty old, but after Moses, people are 70, 80 seems to be the average. And of course it depends on, how you live, your quality of life, and where you are in the world and the time frame, what you eat. There's a lot of variables, okay? But we see that slowly declines to the average age that we kind of agree with even today. 70, 80, 90. We're living longer today. Again, things have changed. But I just say that to say, as the world's broken, this is gradual. So Jacob living earlier, Isaac living longer, Jacob living longer. This is why those ages might be different. It's one theory out there. Okay, just in case that catches you and you start going down that rabbit hole, I don't believe this story anymore. I want you to catch. There's answers out there. Okay. Being blessed does not mean trouble-free. When you look at those years of Jacob's life, how many years he lived and how many troubles he faced. He lost the love of his wife in childbirth. She birthed Joseph and then Benjamin, and she died giving birth to Benjamin, Rachel. He had to suffer the loss of a wife. He had to suffer what he thought was the loss of one of his loved children. He kind of played favorites as his dad did. He favored Joseph. The other brothers got jealous, and they sold him to slavery, told their dad he died. Their dad lived with that in pain of thinking his son, his favorite son, died for years. And then the pain of knowing your other 11 sons lied to you all these years, and they thought about killing him, but they sold him. The pain of having a daughter raped and having your name smeared and your other brothers going out and giving you a bad reputation. He had to live through a lot of challenges, the loneliness on his journeys, fleeing, having a father-in-law who treats you poorly, father-in-law who takes advantage of you, who deceives him. You know, you want my daughter Rachel, work 7 years. He works 7 years, and then the father-in-law tricks him and gives him the older daughter. What? Okay, work another 7 years. You know, Jacob did not have an easy life. You say, well, he's the son, he's the child of the blessing. It was through him that all people would be blessed, that this promise would come down. He was a great-grandfather of Jesus. And yet his life wasn't easy. You see, being blessed doesn't mean life's always going to be easy. Jesus came down. He did not have an easy life. He came down and he was willing to come down in a humble situation, even probably had family problems. Well, not probably, did have family problems with his brothers. And it seems at one point his brothers were okay with him dying. They're trying to kill you in Jerusalem. Hey, why don't you go to Jerusalem? Go on. You know, there's some challenges that Jesus faced in his own family, his own household. And yet, there's a greater purpose that God is trying to accomplish through these families. And so we're talking about families today. And we're starting a new series on families. And I just want to say that sometimes you come to church and you feel like, as we look around, some families got it all together. How come, my kids are crying, that person just looks at them and goes, Ksh, and they just cried up. How does that work like that? And, sometimes you think, that family comes in and everyone's happy and they leave and they're happy and they drive away in this nice car and they're going off to a nice job or a nice home and everything seems right. And there's other families who are just trying to survive and things seem like chaos. Is God with them and God's not with us? How does this work? God, where are you? Why am I going through these struggles and these challenges? But we don't see what's going on behind the scenes. Every family has problems. My kids can tell you that. My family's got problems. Anytime there's a problem in public with my kids, sometimes, you won't see me do it, but I'm like, God, are you kidding me? We're in public, stop it. Right? When you're in public, you're like, there's a different way you act. You put on a fake face. I don't care. You act differently. And sometimes that's multiplied when you come to church. We're at church, best behavior, or you're in big trouble. Right? And so what does that say when people come in? You bring people into this church. It's supposed to be broken families, problems, and challenges. We're supposed to be a family. People come in, I don't belong in this family. Everyone's perfect. And this doesn't seem right. I'm not saying come in and just like, okay, kids, chaos. Let's show them how bad we are. No, we do our best. That's how people are in the society. But we also have to remember, be real. That's why we've been focusing on discipleship. When you're in a discipleship group, you confess and you get to see, you go into someone's home and you're like, oh, they do have some problems here. Wow. And you do realize that we are imperfect people. We're perfected by Christ, but we all have problems, but that doesn't mean that God's not working through us. That doesn't mean that God's not blessing us. As a matter of fact, you don't become perfect so that God will use you. I got to be perfect so God will use me. You need to invite God into your home so God can redeem you, so that God can show the world how he redeems and grows and perfects people through Christ. We'll never be perfect. Any one of us, and I like Jason's sermon a couple weeks ago, how we like our funeral to go. Any one of us, you could highlight all the bad things. You could also flip it and say, well, here's all the problems they died with. Because we will all die with problems. We are not saved because of how good or what we are able to do. We're saved because we're perfected by Christ and we're a part of a promise. Amen. And so it's because of that, we invite Christ into our home and we invite Christ, and we make sure, even in the church, this sounds crazy to say that, invite Christ in the church. There's some that we come to the church is the people. We come to our gathering. And there are people here, some that do not like others. That person bothers me. But there are some husbands and wives. That person bothers me. We have problems, family problems that God wants us to work through. Practice patience. Practice peace. Practice forgiveness. Practice love. Doing good to others, not because they deserve it. Model repentance. Practice forgiveness. Show reliance on God. Kids, I'm sorry, I am not perfect. I need to work on that. Thanks for calling that to my attention. And when we model it, when we are together living it, we see the redemption of Christ, the redemptive work of Christ. And that's why we've been focusing on discipleship groups. Because over time, as you get to know each other a little better, you don't get to know each other. There's 150 of us or however many. How many would come in this morning and, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Hey, good to see you this morning. Good to see you. And you do that every day for 52 Sundays. I was going to say 365 days. If you're here every day, great. But if that's all you do every time you see each other, how well do you know each other? You don't know each other. After 10 years of doing that, let's see, 30 seconds. Let's say you spent 2 minutes to hear each other. 52 times. You don't know each other. So when you get together, when you're in a discipleship group and you really, life on life, you see how each other lives, and you challenge each other. Hey, I don't think that was a good way to respond. Have you tried this? Or, hey, let's try. Or you just watch how someone does something, and you're growing and learning together. That's one of the reasons we're focusing on this. But the first discipleship group God has given you is your family. church family, but your household, and your children. Those are the immediate ones you work with at all times. And so with our children, they are the first responsibility for those who have children. And we remember through the story of Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Rachel and Leah and the 12 tribes of Israel. We remember through the Bible stories, but especially with Isaac's situation. God revealed himself to Isaac. Isaac was full of failure. There were consequences for his failure. But he had an encounter and a reminder of God's presence. And God redeemed him. He formed him. There's formation where God was shaping him through time. And then God redeemed him. And we see that at the end of Jacob's life, as Jacob and Esau are back together, brothers together, burying their father. And Esau never killed Jacob. And the story ends with two mature individuals, and their tribes went on for many years, make their own mistakes, but Jacob and Esau had a good relationship, it seems, when they passed later in life. So I say that to say, keep Christ in your family, keep God in your life, invite him in, and let God do his work. And you might not even see the end results. Some of the strongest wood that we use for building, for tools, for structure, the strongest woods out there generally are the trees that take the longest time to grow. And you can look at some trees, oak, hickory, ironwood, cedar, a long time these trees take to grow. And those who plant oak trees for their company to use years down the road, sometimes they will never see how those trees, when they're harvested. But they know they're planting them because they're needed in the future, and they'll be strong trees if you let them grow in the right pace. And so remember that God is at work in our families. You may never see the results of what God's doing, but don't doubt God. Trust him. Invite him into your homes, in your life, and grow as a family and as a church. And let God's plan for the future work through us. The foresters, those who are pulling those trees, they might never know who planted those trees or when they were planted, but they do know how they're being used. So sometimes we see what God's doing, and many times we're just planting for someone else to be able to see the results. May God bless us as we continue to invite him into our homes, and may we stay strong and faithful and see his blessings as Jacob and Esau were able to do.